Dose of Leadership Podcast, episode 301.
Welcome to another episode of the Dose of Leadership Podcast, the show that brings you inspiring and educational interviews with today's most relevant and motivating leaders. Each episode is dedicated to highlight real-life leadership and influence experts who dedicate their lives to the pursuit of the truth, common sense, and courageous leadership. And now, here's your host, Richard Rierson.
Hey, welcome to the show, episode 301 here on Dose of Leadership. Great conversation today. It was a really fun and fascinating one. It's one of my favorites, actually. It's Matt Rizzetta. He's the president and CEO of North 6 Agency, or N6A. It's a leading brand communication agency based in New York City and just recently opened an office up in Toronto, so they become international. N6A has been ranked as the number one fastest growing agency in the United States in its revenue category by O'Dwyer's. And it's as well as been ranked as one of the 50 most powerful agencies in the United States and quote unquote the coolest spaces and the hottest PR firms by The Observer. This conversation with Matt was great because he reached out to me, and when I started looking at his company, looking at his beliefs, his value system, I knew I had to get him on the show. Matt gets it. He truly does. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean it. He's just a young and up-and-coming entrepreneur and leader, and he understands the importance of culture and engagement. And we really dive deep into this conversation on here. So if you're interested in learning how to do it right in an organization, how to engage your employees, engage the workplace, look at business and life intertwined, this is the conversation for you. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really enjoyed Matt, and I look forward to seeing what N6A agency does and what Matt does as a future leader. Great conversation. All right, make sure you check out Legacy Leader Blueprint if you're looking to increase your engagement in your organization, if you're looking for to train your up-and-coming high performers, your supervisors, introduce them into leadership, but you just can't find the time, then let me help you with Legacy Leader Blueprint. It's a perfect course. At $349 a seat, it won't break the bank, and it won't eat up a lot of your time either, because it allows your team to watch 20 online videos at their own pace. And 4 times throughout the session, I have 4 modules, 5 videos in each module. I will meet with you virtually, live. I will meet with you live, online, and we will cement the material into your company, into your culture, and into your up-and-coming leaders. So check out Legacy Leader Blueprint at legacyleaderblueprint.com. You can watch a free video that tells you all the information about the course and what's entailed. Or you can find out more at doseofleadership.com or my personal website, richardrierson.com as well. And let me know where you're at in your leadership journey. I love hearing from all of you. And as always, I answer every email. Okay, great conversation. Here it comes Matt Rizzetta, the CEO of N6A, here on Dose of Leadership. Matt, super pumped to have you on the show. Welcome to Dose of Leadership, my friend.
Hey, Richard, thanks for having me. Big fan of the programs.
Yeah, I mean, as you reached out to me and thought we'd have a good conversation, and I started doing some research on you and your company, and I was like, man, I've got to get this guy on my show. I am so impressed with what you've done in such a short amount of time. How did you, I want to get into the story about how you started the business, but how did you, most importantly, realize the importance of leadership and culture at such an early stage of your entrepreneurship?
Well, it's a great question, Richard. I appreciate the compliment too. It's been a really great journey for us over the past 8 years since we started N6A. I will say, from a leadership perspective, I'm always in constant pursuit of improvement. I tell people all the time, this journey at N6A for me and for our team is really just the manifestation of 8 years of learning lessons, and not being afraid to experiment, not being afraid to push the envelope, but holding ourselves very accountable and being very comfortable operating in a culture of experimentation. And after 8 years of doing that, you find out some things that work really well, and you double down on those things, and you find out there's also a lot of stuff that you did that didn't work so well, and there were some crazy decisions you made, and it's all about holding yourselves accountable and cutting your losses for the stuff that didn't work. And that's really our business, is just the manifestation of 8 years of learning.
I love it. It's always having that teachable, humble, or that humble, teachable spirit, I say, right? I mean, it's always having and knowing that there's always something to learn. And it seems like all the entrepreneurs that I've had on this show, At some point they had a kind of a splat moment, if you will, or a moment of clarity where they said, you know what, I've got to start learning how to be a leader. And I think in entrepreneurship, we go towards the business with, it's always about product, about marketing, about, profits and social media and everything else. And somehow leadership gets kind of pushed to the side. But at some point as you're growing, you've got to have leadership in your hip pocket. In fact, I would imagine if you look at almost all top 10 lists of why businesses fail, and I'm sure there's a ton of them if I Googled, I bet you leadership is at the core of all of that.
1,000% agree with you. And I can tell you just from my experience, I look at leadership as the lifeblood of all business, especially services businesses, and especially businesses that are looking to scale to the next level. And it's about constant improvement. Through the years, I'll tell you, if there's three things I've learned about leadership, it's that it comes down to three things, right? It comes down to one, education. Like, you need to have a constant commitment to this two-way educational relationship with your employees. And when I say two-way, it's important. Like, you need to see yourself as an educator to them, someone who's going to help them get better and teach them, right? But it's also the other way around. Like, I found that I've learned so much, from our staff members and our employees, and I'm sort of in constant student mode, and that's helped me a lot. Number two is, and this is the irony, certainly it's actions first. It's actions over words. And I really think that defines you as a leader. And trust me, Richard, like, I'm in, N6A, I'm in the communications business. So trust me when I say, I know how to communicate, we know how to communicate. It's what we do. But ironically, it's the actions. It's not the words that I want to define me as a leader. So actions over words was sort of the second biggest learning lesson. And then number three for me is opportunism. I think that's a big part of leadership and often gets overlooked. I think effective leadership is all about understanding situations. I think it's about having the presence of mind to understand the timing of certain situations and then to seizing those opportunities. Like, I look at my direct reports and I look at our senior management team. I look at our whole entire culture here at N6A. And, there's probably 4 or 5 times a year where in a leadership capacity, you have an opportunity to really create what I call defining moments, something that defines you as a leader, something that the people who you lead will really remember, and it will have, a lasting effect and a lasting impact on them. And you as a leader, you really need to have the presence of mind to know when those defining moments present themselves and then to act effectively as a leader so that the impact you have on others will leave a lasting impact.
I love that. I love those three, and particularly the opportunism one, because it's so true. It's something we don't talk about a lot. I guess we kind of skim the surface, but the fact that you have this, what I'm hearing you say is having the ability to have the self-awareness to always be kind of on the ready for when those doors present themselves, because you never know when it's going to happen necessarily. It's like if you're preparing, if you're waiting to get the speech and you're not prepared for the speech, that's too late. You have to be preparing for the speech, and then hopefully, and then certainly the universe will provide you with an opportunity to, get your one shot. Am I summing that up correctly?
Very, very well said. I completely agree with you. In fact, I can tell you, just sort of flipping the switch for a second, the biggest mistakes I feel I've made through the years and the biggest lessons I've learned have been when I didn't seize opportunities to really create defining moments with the people that I reported to. And, when you do the post-mortem and you look back at it, you say, that was a really good opportunity for me to have managed the situation this way or to leave a lasting impact, and I kind of missed that window and I should have done it differently. And, I've learned in time that that's one of the most important parts of leadership, is just understanding the situation, understanding the timing, and then executing with some sort of a action first mindset, when you have that window in front of the people who are turning to you for leadership.
I like that. And I think the more that you focus off of yourself, I think I've struggled with this in my leadership journey, where I'm saying that it's not about me, but then I find that my thoughts and my actions are a little more self-serving than they really should be. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to kind of, die to yourself so that others may live, if you will. And I think that's what you're talking about with this opportunism piece, because the more that you do die into yourself and focus on others, you're more aware of those opportunities. And when those opportunities present themselves, then you can, because you've died to yourself and let someone else live, you get to celebrate in the resurrection of that opportunity. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well said. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great, in looking at your values and even what you just said there, the education, the action, the opportunism, and then looking at your values where you're focused on creativity, commitment, friendliness, and courtesy, the organization, the accountability, or in the organization in your daily routine and the organization, the results of your colleagues. How do you drive that to your folks? I mean, that's one thing that really impressed me when I looked at your stuff. Is like, okay, yeah, this you've spent a lot of time in the self-awareness of who you are as individuals and who you are as an organization. Tell me a little bit about that process. I mean, how long did it take?
Sure. I think, it's interesting, Richard, because at least in my case, when I started N6A, it was 8 years ago. I was a young entrepreneur at the time. I was in my mid-20s, really. So I was a first-time entrepreneur, and I was just trying to get a lot of advice from people because I was a first-time entrepreneur. And I remember, not that this is bad advice, but a lot of advice I got was it's business. It's not personal, right? You should have a wall. There should be a firm wall between business and personal life. So for the first year or so out of the gate, I really managed toward that mindset where I didn't let my personal life and even to a lesser extent my personal values spill into the business values. And I realized that was a huge mistake. Like there was like the light bulb kind of went off, right? A year into it, I found that you as a business leader, you take things personally. It's a natural human emotion, right? It happens. You lose an employee who you didn't want to lose. That stings. You take that personally. You didn't get that client who you thought was really you were a great match for and you would have done a great job for. You didn't get that client. You take that personally. That's a very human feeling, right? So I think when I started to realize that it's okay, it's okay to let your personal values and what you represent and what you stand for in your life spill into how you run your business. Like we've never looked back since then. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my leadership journey. It's like, no, it's okay. Like your staff, the people who you lead, staff, clients, vendors, they want to get a little window into that personal journey of yours and what matters to you in your personal life, and they want to see that define the business. And at least in my experience, that was a game changer for us.
Man, that resonates with me deeply. I can't agree with you more. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and even the frustrations I've had in the corporate arena as a leader myself, even in frustrations where I've consulted and coached companies and individuals, and trying to break that barrier down is my biggest challenge, because I agree with you. That's where I failed. When my biggest splat moment was because I kept it separate. I wasn't the same guy that you saw at work than I was at home, and that's a shame. And that led to a lack of authenticity that I think the vast majority of the population is struggling through. And if you can break down that wall and become authentic, you can become vulnerable, and you can step up to the plate and take action and be courageous, you're well on your way to wading into a leadership pool that most people don't enter. And I think that is a great insight that you saw that so early.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I appreciate it. I'll tell you, just quick story on that. I remember a few years into starting N6A, I would give one-off speeches to aspiring entrepreneurs and to students on management and leadership. And I remember, I would talk about, I'll never forget this. I went to my alma mater. I own a college. It's about 20 miles north of New York City. And I talked to a group of students who were aspiring entrepreneurs. And I was talking to them about, my entrepreneurial journey, right? And I remember talking to them in the speech about things like, hey, we grew 35% top line revenue year over year, or, our EBITDA improved by X percent, or, this is our burn rate and you need to be really cautious of that. And as I'm telling them all of these business data points, all I saw was eyes would glaze over, they would be looking at their cell phones. They didn't care about that, right? And then I'm like, all right, let's start talking about my personal journey. And then we start talking about how that impacted our business. And, our business is named after my immigrant grandparents, right, who made crazy sacrifices to put me in the position I'm in to run our business today, or how I lost a sister, for example, at a very young age, and how that really molded me and the person I am today. And you start talking about those things and then how they impacted you and your business and your leadership journey, and people start paying attention. And I think that was really a transformational moment in my life where I realized, hey, it's okay. This happens in life, and it's okay for that to spill into business, because the entrepreneur is thinking about their business nonstop, and their life is their business, frankly.
Yeah, and I think it's understanding that it's getting comfortable. It's getting comfortable with the fear and uncertainty that's always there. I think a lot of times we miss the boat is that we want so many of the things. I mean, we want things to be smooth and profitable, and we want to be happy, but it's coming to the realization for me, to understanding that the fear and uncertainty never goes away, and I'm not going to waste my time and energy and resources trying to make everything smooth. In fact, I'm going to kind of embrace the uncertainty and live immediately now. I mean, if I can kind of quote that from Seneca, from Seneca, that's old, that's ancient. That's just kind of a, and I think entrepreneurs and leaders need to have that kind of stoic mentality towards life, because it's not a depressing way to look at life. It's an exhilarating, exciting way to look at it, I think. And that's what I'm hearing from you when you're saying that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I absolutely agree, Richard, and I think you're speaking to a very important point there, which is that you hit on. There's really no guarantees in this, and I'm very clear. I try to be very clear and transparent about that to our staff and our clients and our vendors and everyone who has chosen to come on this journey with us here at N6A. There's no guarantees in this, right? I can tell you, I have a very clear vision as a CEO, as a leader of a business. I have a very clear and aggressive ambition, very clear goals for how I want, what the vision for the company is, and how we want to give back to people who helped us along the journey. But there's no guarantees that it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen, and I'm going to work my butt off, continue to work my butt off to make it happen. But there's no guarantees when it comes to performance and outcomes. The only guarantee you have as a leader is your values, right? You can guarantee that you're not going to compromise your values, how you carry yourself, the standards you hold yourself to and the organization. So focus on those. Control what's in your control. Focus on what you have control over, and be certain in the uncertainty that there's no guarantees that the business is going to perform the way you want it to.
That is so true. But you said a very important point there, is that of course you want to succeed and accomplish those goals, but you said you've got to focus on the values. You've got to have something that every decision, no matter how minute or how large, something that you can compare it against. Do we go get printer paper? Well, does it align with our values? I mean, it's as simple as that. To where are we going to be strategically 10 years from now? All of that, and you're right, you can't go wrong if you have those values to fall back on. I think the problem is if you value the goal, if that defines you, then that's where people start sacrificing their values, because it becomes all that more important to reach that whatever goal you set out there, instead of adhering to your values. And I don't know, does that make sense?
I think that absolutely makes sense. I can tell you on that note too, from a personal example, the personal example of mine. We, at N6A now, we're 52 people. We're spread across 2 offices now in New York and Toronto. And to some of your listeners, that might not sound like a huge enterprise, but for me, as somebody who started this company out of my basement, with no money 8 years ago, we're like IBM in my mind. You know?
Exactly.
So, and there's been a lot of people. I've been very fortunate. There's been a lot of people that have been along for the ride that have been very loyal to us and are still a part of this today, and they were a part of this when we were 8 or 10 people nestled into a little basement office. And some of those people, they're very proud, obviously, of the journey and to have been a part of that and to have contributed to something that we believe is very special. They're also a little scared because they see us continuing to grow, and there's always some level of fear that we're going to get so big that we're going to miss out on the intimacy and the family-like environment and culture we've built. So I tell them all the time, I said, look, guys, here's the deal. I can't guarantee that we're going to get the company as big as we want it to get, but I can guarantee you the following. I can guarantee you that our values, everything that we've stood for the past 8 years, we're not going to make any compromises there. That's going to be as firm and I'm going to be as adamant about holding ourselves to those same values that got us here as we grow. And if that ever happens where we're scaling and it comes at the expense of compromising any of those values, that's it. We're not growing anymore. And I think our people kind of respect that because they understand that no matter how big we get, it's never coming at the expense of value compromisation.
I love that, man. I got to tell you, I don't know if you realize how unique that is for an entrepreneur at your level to have that clarity. Because I know I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs who are further along the journey than you, and they have not even reached that moment of clarity yet. And I'm saying that as a completely honest and open compliment. I mean, not that I've talked to every entrepreneur out there, but it seems to be the trend is even in business and large organizations, they don't understand that. They don't get that.
Yeah.
And so I got to commend you for knowing that. And again, even looking at your 6 taglines, that's a thing that I first saw when you reached out to me, and those really spoke to me. And I think because here's the rub, and I've said this on this show, and even when I try to do internal podcasts for organizations for the whole idea of what you're talking about here is that if the senior leadership, i.e. you, consistently and maniacally, and I don't use that word lightly, communicates where the ship is going and why, then you're going to have an engaged workforce. And I don't know how engaged your employees are, but I would imagine that they're probably more engaged than most. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think in our case, we have an amazing team, and your company is only as good as your people, right? And you want to build a culture, in my mind, Richard, where at least this is what I've focused on. And again, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I'm not perfect by any means, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you're building a special culture when you have established an organization and a culture that gives back to your employees commensurate or proportionate to what they put in, right? And that's all I can do. This is an incredibly demanding environment in terms of customer service. Standards are higher than ever before. The standards of excellence when it comes to business performance have never been higher. So you're going to have to hold your employees to ridiculously high standards. It's just the reality of today's environment. However, good companies, in my mind, companies that are building special cultures after they have come to that, have faced that reality. The great companies are the ones who give back to their employees what their employees put in, because you have a lot of big companies out there that don't give back to their employees what their employees put in. And I think that as we built N6A, we hold our employees to very high standards. We work very hard. We have an incredibly demanding, fast-paced service environment, but we also give back a lot, and that's what the journey is all about. The journey is about getting out what you put in, and that's what we've tried to commit ourselves to.
So simple to understand that, but why is it so difficult for so many organizations and individuals to understand that? I mean, really, I don't mean to be flippant when I say that, but I mean that is so common sense, but I don't know. I love that you said that. I love the fact too that when going back to your taglines, which I think are great, and the embrace the pace one as your first one, I love that. I mean, because I think a lot of times organizations, and I'm even speaking from a recent coaching client that I had. This HR department brought me into this organization and said, hey, we've got this individual, and people they're struggling, working for her and everything else. And then I got in and I got embedded with her, and I'm like, she's a person who would fit great within 6A. She embraced the pace, but everybody else around her, including the organization, kind of embraced the mediocre. And I think that's what the problem in so many businesses is that we've settled on the mediocre. We're not supposed to embrace the pace. I think you're supposed to. Your thoughts? I
agree. First off, please send her resume my way. First off,
I will.
But I completely agree. And the whole, our embrace the pace mindset, and that's a tagline of ours, and it's actually something we just got trademarked. Speed is key, is essential in today's business climate. It just is. It's the way it is. Today's business environment is all about delivering products or services, in our case, the quickest and with the highest quality to your customers, right? So speed and workflow is more important than ever before in today's business climate. And you have two choices. You can either ignore that or you can embrace it. And, we choose to embrace it, Richard, obviously. And the thing there is that for some reason, and this is sort of isolated to our specific industry, communications and the agency environment, there's a lot of agencies today that still have this billable hour mindset where if you sneeze for a client, if you think about the client or you sneeze, you're billing them. That's not sustainable. Like that might be working right now, but that's not sustainable over the long run. Speed needs to be treated with a premium, not with a penalty, and that's what our whole model is based on.
I don't know. I guess it resonates with me because coming from the Marine Corps, and I talk about where the whole maneuver warfare concept is kind of around that kind of embrace the pace concept, where it's like, look, it's about speed, it's about aggression, it's about being fluid, it's about being comfortable and confident, composed inside that chaos. And I think a lot of times people waste time, energy, and resources trying to put out all the fires around you. The embrace and pace says, look, there's always going to be a fire. In fact, I'm going to get comfortable within it. And I'm not. You're not going to run around with your head cut off or bring gasoline to the fire or just throw things on the wall, see what sticks. You go with it with a composed, confident kind of composure, and you embrace that chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Look at athletes. The best athletes are always the ones who can slow the game down when the game's pace is the fastest. And that's sort of what you're getting to, is that like the business climate is fast. It just is. It is, and there's demand for quick delivery on products, and like it is what it is. It's incredibly frenetic and breakneck speeds right now. The great service providers and the great ones are the ones who, in that kind of chaos and that high, fast-paced environment, are the ones who have an ability to slow the game down and to execute, despite the fact that they're actually operating at ridiculously fast paces, and that's what we believe in here.
And I'm curious to see as you've trying to attract and find the right people to work in that culture. I think that if you talk about it the way that you do and the way that you kind of explain, embrace the pace, there's a level of excitement that I bet you even new employees, people coming out of college, that they're like, hey, they may have thought that they couldn't do it, but the way that you kind of explain it, there might be some kind of epiphanies, if you will, of like, hey, maybe this is something I can do. Instead of, I think sometimes the fear is, I'm going to be this embrace the pace, high pace culture. It's going to be difficult to find those clients. My argument is that there's a lot of people who don't realize they would be good at this. Does that make sense? That they would be good at this.
No, that makes perfect sense. In fact, that's exactly what our philosophy is. We recruit to that system, like you recruit to the fast-paced nature of the environment and the system. We're very clear and transparent about the pace, but it's fun as can be. Like you're gonna work fast. The days are gonna go by fast, but I'll tell you what, like you're gonna have a great time.
Right.
We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're going to grow. You're going to be invested in this. We're going to do it together, and we're going to keep building it, together as the journey moves along. And that's, there's an addictive, there's something that really, really, really breeds excitement and energy, and that's what you're getting at. And I totally agree.
Yeah, it's that positive kind of sense of satisfaction. I mean, so many people go to work, and it's just, they're looking forward to the weekend. You want people to come in there not wanting to leave, because they want to. Yeah, I don't know. I love it.
I'll tell you, we built that well. The other thing, on the whole embrace the pace culture too, and I can speak to this as someone who obviously started that, but like my team also makes me pick my game up in terms of embracing the pace
it feeds
more than anyone, right?
Yeah.
So like if you recruit the right people, they'll make you pick your game up.
Exactly.
And, I worked fast and I thought I worked smart 7 years ago. Well, I'll tell you, I work a lot faster and a lot smarter now because I have a lot better people that are making me better along the way too.
Oh, it's so fun when you have that, when you're surrounded by people who are smarter and push you and everybody's pushing each other. I just think that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, that's the environment I want to work in,
Well, what's interesting about that too, Richard, is that, we're talking now about recruiting to your specific system or your culture as an organization. you know, our culture is fast. It's giving back. It's team. It's talking about making sure that you have each other's backs and each one of you is invested together in this journey. But like, in order to recruit the best of the best, like, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to recruit the best of the best. I always ask candidates two questions, always. Question number one is, tell me someone who you want to make proud. I want somebody in my organization who always, on a personal level, is on a mission to make somebody in their life proud in their career, right? And then question two is I want you to make sure you can tell me somebody who you want to prove wrong. Because I want someone in my organization in a healthy way, not in a disruptive way. I want someone who has a chip on their shoulder. You know, maybe they were overlooked for that big job. Maybe they were told that they were a little too young to take on that leadership role. Like, if that's who you are, I want you. I want somebody who, you know, you can work for us at N6A with that mindset. I want someone who you want to make proud and you want to prove wrong. And I can just tell you, in my journey in business, like, there's people, like, I can't tell you how many people rolled the dice and put their faith in me when I was a nobody, right? And I had nothing, you know, family members, business, you know, first batch of clients, you name it. Like, I want to make those people proud, you know, and I've never forgotten that. And today, 8 years into this, like, I'm more motivated and more driven to make them proud than I was when we first started the business. And I can tell you the other thing, too, like, you don't forget people who tell you that you're going to fail, right? You keep those things in the back of your mind and, you know, carry that chip on your shoulder in a very healthy, productive, galvanizing way, right? And 8 years into this, I'll tell you right now, we might have a lot less doubters today than we did 8 years ago, but the people that doubted us 8 years ago, they still drive me and drive us to get to the next level each and every day. So I want to recruit people that have both of those things on their mind.
I love that. I mean, the whole idea of I mean, you look at everybody that's created something of significance, you're always going to have the naysayers and the doubters. And in fact, you know, the bigger the dream, you know, it's Stephen Pressfield talks about it in the War of Art, you know. I mean, the bigger, if you're going to a higher platform, a higher level, you know, you're trying to go from your basement to, you know, working in downtown Manhattan and opening a PR agency, that's a big step, you know. And there's going to be a lot of resistance, and it's usually people that you admire, people that are closest to you are going to tell you you can't be done, or it's probably, you know what I mean, that it might not be able to be done. And so you need to use that energy as a positive spark, you know, to light a fire under your butt to get it going, you know?
That's right. Well said. I'll tell you something. My father, I have, you know, is like a role model to me. My father, you know, I have more respect for my father than anybody in this world, right? And my father, we talked about actions over words. My father, it actually advised me against starting our business when we started the business. You know, he thought I was too young. He thought I was still a few steps away from doing this. So, you know, and I trust my father with my life. Anything he says, like, I'll listen to. This was one example of where the stubborn kind of New York Italian in me came out, and I didn't listen to him. But the minute that I made a decision to start the business, somewhat against the advice of my father immediately went into support mode, right?
Right.
So he's like, all right, you know what? I don't think you should do this, but you've made your mind up, and now I got your back, right? I'm in 100% support mode. You know, my father, not an emotional person, all he's done is shown me over the years that through his actions what leadership is all about. Like, and I think there's a lot to be said about that too. Like, there's a lot about, you get advice from people, you know, you weigh it, you know, you think about it in a very intelligent, considerate way. You make decisions as a person, and then you want to surround yourself with people who then get behind you and have your back and support you. And, like, I just know my father, I think of that, and he's been a part of this journey, and he's somebody who, you know, we wouldn't be where we are today without him. He's somebody who actually told me not to start it. And since I made the decision to, all he's been has been our biggest cheerleader, our biggest supporter, and said, all right, what do I have to do to help?
Hey, that's a big leadership lesson on both fronts. I mean, particularly, your father, what a great example, right? I mean, he's going to tell you authentically this is what he feels. He doesn't think so. But then he sees his son makes the decision, commits himself, and then what a great decision for him, a leadership decision for him to go, okay, I don't agree with what he did, but I'm going to support him. But, you know, that's a great, I was funny that you mentioned that. I was just flipping channels. It was real late, and then There was an old interview with John Denver on. I mean, this is crazy. It's kind of weird how this is bringing the story, but he was talking with Merv Griffin, and this was an old interview from like 1975, when at the peak of when John Denver was at his height, right? And he was asking him about that, and the same thing said to him. He was about 2 semesters away from graduating college, and he said, "This isn't me. My calling is music. I got all this music inside of me. I want to do this." And he told his parents he was dropping out, and his parents said, "Oh my gosh, we think this is the biggest mistake you're making in your life." But John Denver committed himself, said, "I'm dropping out. I'm going on the road. I'm gonna write music, and I'm gonna sing the songs." And his parents did the exact same thing that your father did. They got behind him, and he said that was a catalyst. That energy from his parents having that support, even though they didn't agree with him, was probably the biggest motivator for him to continue on. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Beautiful story. And yeah, I mean, look at, we just talked about that whole concept of making people proud and proving people wrong. And
right,
like,
there he was.
That's it. Like, you get that kind of support. If you have that support system, right, and you get that kind of support from people that you surround yourself with in your inner circle, who, even if they don't agree with the decision, the minute the decision is made, all right, that's it. They go right into support mode. Got your back. What can I do to help? I'm going to get you where you want to go. Even though I told you not to do it, you're surrounding yourself with the right people. And obviously my father is my father, so he's
sure,
he's a little bit more invested in this whole thing than some other people. But I've been very blessed because I've had action first. I've had an action first inner circle, not a words first, an action first inner circle for my whole career, even with people that aren't related by blood to me. I mean, I think of our first client. We started our business. Our first client was a guy, company Zeta, a guy named Al Guido ran the company, who I'm still very close with today. I mean, he's had a transformational impact on my career. And the minute I started our business, our agency, Al called me up when he said, "Look, what do I have to do to get behind it?" Like, "Matt, you're my guy." And he told people who told him he was crazy to sign up with us. You're putting your entire business's brand, PR, image, and media presence in the hands of some unproven 26, 27-year-old entrepreneur. And Al Guido, he stood up for me. He said, that 26, 27-year-old first-time entrepreneur has had more impact and delivered more results on, in my career and for my business than anybody. So, my contract is going to him. I believe in him. And that's that whole pay it forward mindset. Like, it taught me a lot. If people bet on you, don't forget who those people are, and never forget that your career and your leadership journey is really just a journey in making sure you're repaying them for the bets they made on you.
I love that story, and I love it. I mean, I can see it. I mean, talking to you and seeing it, I can see how they do that, and what a gift to have somebody, stand up for you like that. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what life's all about. I mean, to be quite honest. I mean, it's like you do that for your kids, you do that for your friends, people that you care about. And it comes from a real place. And if you're not authentic and vulnerable, then you're not going to get stuff like that. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, Richard, you're out there talking to leaders, from all walks of life, not just in business, all the time. And I can tell you, in my case, one thing I've learned over the years is that as a leader of an organization, you need to understand your responsibility, and that when you take over that organization, whether it's, in my case, something that you started from scratch, or whether you're inheriting an organization midstream, or whether you're a leader in a non-commercial capacity, just, military background like yourself, or teaching capacity, education capacity. If you're in a leadership position, you need to understand your responsibility, right? You are taking an oath. In my case, don't sign up for that oath and that responsibility if you can't handle it. Like, people's lives, families, futures, retirements, they're all in your hands. They're in my hands. I have 52 people, and you cannot take that lightly. My scorecard after 8 years of being a CEO, have I made a lot of money, by most American standards? Absolutely, no doubt about it. But no, that's not what I'm most proud of on my scorecard, and I don't want that to be the defining data point on my scorecard. What I'm proud of is the fact that I've learned from other people and the impact that I've had on those people. So I look around our company today, and there's people who were started out as interns with us. They're running their own groups now. They're the most successful people in our industry at their age, certainly, and they're given leadership roles at much younger ages than they would otherwise. I look around our company, we've never laid one person off ever. for financial reasons. I'm proud of that. It shows a discipline and a responsibility to managing your business prudently and with financial awareness, right? Promotions. We've promoted people. We've given galore. Promotions galore. We've given young people opportunities to grow into leadership roles. That, in my mind, is what defines you as a leader. The impact you've had on other people and the path that you've given other people. And you give them the ball. It's on them to produce, but you as a leader, it's your responsibility to give them the ball, and that's what I'm proud of, and I think that that's an important lesson that gets lost on a lot of leaders. It's not about you in this leadership game. It's not about you. It's about what you do to others.
Absolutely, well said. I mean, I can't agree with you more. I mean, and I'm just thinking, of all these kind of scandals that we've had coming out of Silicon Valley and even the United kind of debacle. I've had many conversations on flights, and if you look at that United kind of fiasco, it's all because of a lack of culture. Like, what does the company even stand for? It's so big. What does an airline even stand for? And if they don't stand for anything, then they fall back to policies and procedures, and you end up dragging some knucklehead off who's an idiot too. It's a case of Dumb and Dumber pulling each other, causing this fiasco. Or even like Travis, Kalanick at Uber. Yeah. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious that he didn't embrace this authenticity, this culture. I know that's my thoughts on it. What do you think when you see some of these kind of Silicon Valley disasters?
It's funny it's funny, Richard, you use the word authenticity, because that's the exact same word I was going to use. It's leadership. Organizational leadership is all about authenticity, and those examples are great examples. United and Uber, at N6A, we've been following both of those crises very closely, right? And I've done a lot of speeches and media engagements about both of those, and you're 100% right. It all boils down to authenticity, and it speaks to a larger point too, in that you're talking about culture, you're talking about leadership. You cannot fake culture, right? You can't fake it.
Exactly.
It's kind of like having kids. I have three young kids at home: Viviana, Valentina, Simone, young girls. And I've learned as a father, kids are the best, and you can, I'm sure, appreciate this too. Kids are the best BS detectors, right?
Right, exactly.
They're running to your arms if they like you, and if they don't like you, they're going to tell you they don't like you, right? They're the best BS detectors in the world. Culture is very much the same way, where if you're an organization, Uber, United, you cannot fake your culture. You're either genuine and authentic and you're committed to culture, or you're not. And no matter how high paid and how fancy your PR agency is and your team, of external communicators are, if you don't focus on that internal authenticity, you will never get the culture and leadership journey right.
Matt, I love it. I love you. I love what you're doing. I mean, I think you're well on the path to greatness, my friend, and I mean that from the depth of my soul, because I mean, you're speaking things that I've been talking about here on the show for 4.5 years, that I've been talking about for the past 7 years to organizations, and you get it, man. And I wouldn't say otherwise unless I thought that you did. And I'm proud of you, and I'm excited to see what the future brings for you and for N6A. Real quickly, what are you excited about in the future? What's next for you guys? What are you excited about? We just opened our brand new headquarters office here in the Soho area of New York City. Really pumped about that. We opened a office in Toronto, so we expanded internationally. Very, very excited about that. And I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but we talked about that. We opened the show up talking about how our business and my leadership journey really has just been the manifestation of 8 years of not being afraid to experiment, do some crazy things sometimes, and commit to holding yourself accountable, doubling down on the stuff that's working and throwing out the stuff that isn't. And that's really what I'm the most excited about. My wife and I talk about this all the time. We're in this for the long run. We are in this for, I call it the eulogy over the resume. We're in this right now, building today toward what I really expect and hope, and I'm working my butt off to make sure is a beautiful, beautiful eulogy when all is said and done, decades and decades from now. And that's what I'm most excited about. I love it, man. Great way to look at it. What are people going to say about you when you die? It's a great way to keep that fire lit under you and keep you straight on the path, right? As far as I'm concerned, yeah, great concept.
Absolutely, and I'm excited. And I'm most excited about the fact that we have tremendous people, and we've built an organization that we just have great people, and our people make me better every day, and I'm happy to have them on this journey with me.
I love it. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about N6A?
Well, from a corporate perspective, go to n6a.com. That's where all about our company and our clients and our services and all that kind of good stuff. For potential recruits, we're hiring constantly, looking for embrace the pace minded PR and media and marketing professionals. So they should go to competeandcare.com. That's our dedicated recruiting portal. It gets into all of our culture and our corporate values and some of the cool perks and competitions that that we've created.
Matt, great conversation. There's many more things I'd love to explore with you. I'd love to bring you back at some point in the future. And like I said, you always got a welcome invitation here in Dose of Leadership. I'm proud to have you in the Dose of Leadership tribe, and what an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Maybe I'll come out your way for a Wichita State Shockers game this season.
Absolutely, man. Who's your team? Who are you for?
It's funny. I talk about the underdog story. Like I'm like a big masochist. The more pain, the better in my mind. So I'm a big supporter of my alma mater, a small school. I own a college just north of New York City, and we're a mid-major, limited on resources, but certainly have been punching above our weight for the past decade.
Yeah.
So that's who I support.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for coming on the show, Matt, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Go to richardrierson.com or doseofleadership.com and fill out the contact page and reach out to me. Let me know where you're at your leadership journey. Also, if you want access to my brand new online leadership course to help become a better leader, go to legacyleaderblueprint.com. Fill out your email and you gain access to a free 12-minute video that will reveal the top secrets of leadership and also show you how you can gain exclusive access to my online leadership course. That's legacyleaderblueprint.com. Hope to see you on the inside. Thanks for tuning into the show.